And now we come to the last section, which also is just one slide. Where does dignity come from? There are lots of so first let me explain. In some sense, for Kant would say, look, dignity doesn't come from anywhere. Dignity is just what we have as human beings that makes us special, that makes us unique, that gives us value. And in this way, the ChatGPT, though I criticized the ChatGPT at the start, I mean, in this way, the ChatGPT is actually right. ChatGPT said, dignity is the intrinsic worth of humans. And I mean, in some sense, at the end of the day, Kant says just that. He says, look, it doesn't come from anywhere. It's not the result of anything. Dignity is just the intrinsic value of being human. It's just a value we have as human beings. But for many people, this is kind of unsatisfying. We want to know. We want to say, well, I mean, is dignity what I have because I have fingernails? I mean, as far as I know, my mind is racing right now. But as far as I know, I think only human beings have kind of fingernails like this. I think. I'm not sure. But let's just say that. Let's just say only human beings have fingernails. Well, is that why I have dignity? Because I have fingernails? I'm pretty sure that's not it. I'm pretty sure that's not it. So most people who want to think about dignity do end up at one point or another sort of asking themselves, well, what is it about me as a human being that makes me the repository of this kind of dignity? I mean, if I had no fingernails, a horrible experiment, but let's just imagine that somehow I lost all my fingernails, I would still have dignity, right? So just no fingernails. So it's not fingernails that does it, that gives me dignity. So what is it? Now, there are a number of different kinds of possibilities, and I've just listed a few here, but there are many possibilities. And they kind of go from, in a sense, in evolutionary sense, down from low on to up. You could say maybe it's something simple. It's like my body that gives me dignity. But as soon as you say something like that, right, that I'm this bodied creature, I'm not like a candle or something. I have a body that I can move around and shape in one way or another. As soon as you say something like that, though, then the group of those who are included amongst the dignified, the group of those who need to be treated as though they have dignity, gets very big very quickly, right? If you're just going to say, look, just having a body is all you need, or maybe just a mind and a body, like Descartes, say, look, if we have a mind plus a body, then you have dignity. Then we quickly have questions, well, wait a minute. It's true that explains why human beings have dignity. That works. Good. But what about dogs then? Do dogs have dignity? Well, maybe. Dogs kind of seem fairly smart, but not real smart. Do dogs have dignity? If you say no, then what about smarter animals like dolphins or chimpanzees? Seems like, I mean, it can be really difficult. If it's just a mind plus a body that gives us dignity, then it seems like chimpanzees should qualify also as having dignity. And many people, I think, might say, look, okay, I can kind of buy that. Humans have dignity plus some higher animals. But if the definition is just minds plus bodies, then we descend fairly far down the ladder. We go down from chimpanzees, down to dogs, down to even cats, down to goats, and we keep going. There are a lot of creatures out there that have some form of brain or mind, and some form of brain and some form of body. So if we go that way, if we say, look, anything that has dignity has a brain if it has a brain and a body, then it's got dignity. Then all of a sudden, there's a lot of stuff out there with dignity. And it becomes very difficult. I mean, if we're going to take dignity seriously and treat the dignified as ends and not means, then we've got a lot of problems if we're going to say that everything with a brain and a body has dignity. I mean, there goes, we can't eat cows. I mean, would you eat human beings, raise human beings for food? No, of course not. That's a complete lack of dignity, right? Because the human being is being treated purely as a thing, as a farm animal. But that is the way we treat cows. We treat them as things for milk, and roosters and chickens, as things that make eggs and so on. So now we can't have milk, we can't have meat, we can't have eggs. If we blow up or widen the definition of what counts as the dignified, we are going to end up with some real changes in our lives. Plus, I mean, it just seems like really the kind of, this idea of dignity, which is supposed to be this very high and abstract and noble thing, I mean, it just seems like for most advocates, like chickens, even if they have brains and bodies, chickens don't really have dignity, you know? So there's some hesitation about dignity being decided like that. It seems like if we use a really basic or rudimentary biological definition for what counts as having dignity, brains and bodies, then it seems like we have too many things that are dignified. So the response to that is that most people who want to think about dignity, they try to get a little higher quality. They say, look, it's not enough to have brains and bodies. You need to have something more than that to be counted as dignified. And so some people will add something like intelligence. It's unclear exactly what that means, or intentions, or self-consciousness. I think those last two things, self-consciousness and intentions, those two ideas can do quite a bit of work, because self-conscious intention is the idea that, of course, that I step outside of myself. And let's say before I started doing this, before I started taping this seminar, I had a number of things I could have done, a number of responsibilities that I have. I'm writing a paper right now and I have a deadline, so I could have used this time to do that. I am supposed to respond to my emails once in a while, so I could have used this time to respond to emails. But I stood outside myself and formed the intention. I said, well, I'm going to use this time to do my seminar, and then later on I will do the paper, and then later on I will do the emails and so on. This self-consciousness, this idea that I don't just do actions, but I form an intention to do actions, this separates us from a lot of animals, right? Many, many animals live much more instinctively. They may have a brain and a body, but at least it seems, as far as we can tell, that many animals, what we call lower animals, do not have self-consciousness. They don't understand that they are making a decision. It's just that they have a kind of an instinct, like a fish says, look, it's time for me to eat. Oh, look, there's a fish. I will go eat it, right? The fish doesn't say, well, let's see, I could have my fish now, but I think I prefer to rest over here in the weeds for a while, and then I'll go have a quick conversation with Fran, and then I'll go eat that fish over there. As far as we can tell, fish aren't like that. Fish don't have any sense of themselves. Their instincts simply drive them to eat once in a while, in kind of the same way that my instincts drive me to breathe and for my heart to work and so on. But let's just say breathing, right? I mean, I don't think constantly, well, it's been 5 seconds. Should I take a breath now? No, I mean, my brain just does that normally, right? So most people think that a lot of animals live kind of like that, right? When they eat and so on, they do that without thinking about it in some sense, without self-consciousness. There's a kind of consciousness there, or a kind of instinct, but it's not self-conscious. It's not reflective upon themselves. They're not making a decision. So many people believe that the source of human dignity, what makes us special, is some form of this intelligent self-consciousness, some form of this intelligent purposiveness. Because we have this purpose, we have dignity, or that's maybe what reflects the fact that we have dignity. Okay, and that works well, because then now we can say, look, human beings have dignity, and maybe a very few higher level animals, but for the most part, we don't need to worry about it, because trees and stuff obviously don't have dignity, and most animals, even farm animals, don't have dignity either, so we don't need to change our lives very much. And when we're worried about respecting and treating things as ends and not only as means, this is a labor, this is a lot of work. Treating people that way, it stops us from doing a lot of the things we want to do. It forces us to always be considering things and so on. At least we only have to put ourselves through that process. We only have to worry about that when we are talking about this very small group of living creatures here on Earth. We don't need to worry about it for insects. We don't need to worry about it for worms. We don't need to worry about ants. If we're walking down the street and we step on an ant, that's the way it goes. Don't need to worry about it, right? So dignity works a lot better when you start from that higher level of that higher bar, let's say, for what counts as having dignity. In order to have dignity, you must have self-conscious intelligence. But there's also a problem here too, because as soon as we start saying, look, you have to be up at the very top of the evolutionary chain to have this dignity, then what happens if we are visited by, that's this species here, this species comes to Earth, and they have these huge brains that make them much more intelligent than we are, and let's say they have triple the possibility or power of self-consciousness. We have, let's say, just one level of self-consciousness, but these beings from some other planet have developed self, right? 5 levels of self-consciousness. So for these alien beings, when they look at us, what they see are things like farm animals. Our degree of self-consciousness and our degree of intelligence compared to them seems very inferior, right? So by our own logic of what counts as having dignity, by our own logic, the dignity belongs to those with the highest level of self-consciousness and intelligence and intention. By our own logic, we would have to say to them, well, look, we need to treat you people, you space alien visitors, we need to treat you as highly dignified, and we need to respect you as ends and not means. But we would have to admit, you don't need to treat us that way, right? Because we are so far below you in these terms, in terms of self-consciousness and so on. We are almost like worms compared to you and your superpowers of triple self-consciousness and hyper-powered, huge-brained intelligence, right? That we ourselves are left without the dignity that we invented. Right? So it becomes here too. We get back in the situation where dignity is really hard to describe. We can say on the one hand, if we want to justify why human beings have this dignity, and we want to give reasons for it, we don't just want to say, well, it's just some hand-waving thing. It's just a belief we have. If it's more than that, if it's something we can explain and make it real, then we have to go one way. Then we have to give an explanation. And as soon as we do that, as soon as we say we have dignity because X, then we have problems at one extreme or the other. Either we go down, if the definition is too easy, let's say too broad, just mind and body, then we end up with way too many creatures having dignity. But if the definition, by contrast, is one that cuts out all those other creatures and forms this kind of hierarchy and says, well, look, you've got to be, the higher you are, the better. Well, then we've got this worry, as I say, that someone might come visiting us, and if they're higher than us, just like we are higher than farm animals, then by our own definition of dignity, it seems like they are going to be justified as treating us like farm animals, as treating us like commodities, like tools, like things that can be used for their ends. Right? And again, what's worrisome about this is it's by our own definition. They would have the right to put us on farms and harvest us and use us, again, as farm animals or as things or tools. So the difficulty in knowing or defining, what the justification is for dignity or what counts as having dignity is a tremendous potential problem. And the safe solution is just to do the hand-waving thing. Is just to say, well, I don't know why we have dignity, but as humans, we do, and no one else does. You can say that. You can do that. But it shouldn't satisfy you as a reasonable person. It should not satisfy you as a member of this seminar course where we try to explain and give reasons for why we think one thing is something else. But then in the end, it's also true, and very intelligent people take this position. They say, look, we have reasoned through it. We have thought about it. And we recognize this double problem about trying to explain what dignity is, and therefore we come to the reasonable conclusion that there is no reason. And you can defend that, right? You can, as long as you can say, look, I have gone through all the reasonable possibilities, and therefore, and I found there is no one that is satisfying, but I still have this internal sense that human dignity exists, and that you and I are, as people, are different than this pen. I mean, if this pen breaks or runs out of ink, I just throw it out, and I don't care. I can replace it with another one from the same box, which is identical, and it makes no difference to me. But I have this real sensation that human beings are not like this pen. Human beings can't simply be replaced. Human beings can't simply be thrown out because they don't seem useful anymore. We have many nursing homes full of people who, the truth is, their contribution to sort of the greater human project is probably exhausted, but we don't just throw them out. And the reason we don't is because they have dignity. And all of us as human beings share that. We see it. We know it. We share that belief. And maybe we have to say that there are some things we just can't explain. That's reasonable. And you can defend that position. But you can only defend it right after you've gone through the steps we've just taken here. We've said, you know what? This dignity thing, there's some real weaknesses to it too. It's really hard to give a good explanation for why human beings should have this, and only us. Okay, well, I think that's enough for dignity. Why don't you just take a few minutes to think for yourself and use your own experience, your own humanity, to try to decide whether or not dignity is real and whether or not dignity needs an explanation. And then just in general, what we have done today is we have seen these two definitions of dignity, the philosophical definitions. The one is that people should not be treated as tools or instruments, and the other is that the dignity is the right to take accountability for our actions, to not be treated as babies. And then we've seen how that works in a number of dilemmas. So that's dignity.